All right, man. That's what's
Hanging
up,
with
man.
Adam,
Here
we're
we
hanging with
are,
Adam
man.
today.
Yes, we here, man. Reminisce Show every Tuesday, 7 p.m. live Eastern time, man. I go by Logic, and I'm here with my brother.
Mindbender Supreme up in the spot, and I'm
Hey,
with
every
some
day, man.
T Dot,
Man,
a legendary T Dot family in the cut as well.
come on, man. This is the kind of energy that we need, man. You know what I'm saying? We got to bring the people in the community. Some of the people, yeah,
Yo, Miss Man, please. Yo, no, actually, I cannot help but say what we talk about on our show is literally exactly what we were just talking about in this conversation. Cool. The show is called
okay.
the Reminisce Show.
Reminisce Show?
Yeah,
Okay, dope.
and then we
Dope.
just
What up? They call me Throwback. Just
Peace,
joking.
peace.
Logic. What's your
Yeah.
tagline? Like your tagline is like literally exactly like what we about to be doing. Like
Oh, I mean,
sometimes.
like we carry the tradition of Sankofa, so go back and collect what's useful and bring that back, you know what I'm saying? So everything just comes full circle. And the older I get, I really see the value of understanding history, because then you can really see patterns. Patterns pop up like every so often. And it's like, we've seen how this plays out, you know what I mean? So so that's where we're at right now, trying to figure out how we can just maintain some balance and maintain that lost element of hip hop, man, which is knowledge of self, right?
Word up, word up. I mean,
they're
I,
intact.
I
Yeah.
love that I think it's an Egyptian proverb. Ain't nothing new under the sun. And like hell, man, we've seen it with these kids. We've seen it in society. Like if you don't know yourself, like you're fucked. Just you're lost. You're whatever. But
Yeah.
all that being said, I'm here just with some people. I'd love to. Oh my god.
Salute. Yeah.
Yes.
What
Thank
we
you.
got in the
Thank you.
place, yo?
I would love them to introduce themselves. I'm with two wonderful friends who go by the names of.
So my name's Marcus, aka Intellect. Yeah, man. Been in the city all my life, and hip hop is everything. So you know how it goes already.
That's it. Hip hop is life, man. No doubt.
I am Miss Naya, and I'm just like, your run-of-the-mill Toronto chick that just really likes rap music and hip hop. And I was even telling Addie, like, you don't even really know how much you know until you start talking to people, and like the snowball just keeps going and going and going.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm blessed to be able to keep this hip hop company today and feel like I'm on par.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
man. Absolutely. Yeah, bro, man. So how's things, like on your end, man? Like what's the vibe, man? What's the vibe?
Oh, I'm happy. I'm in a good place. Things are getting better and better. I'm organizing my house and arranging a lot of my memorabilia and stuff to have like the biggest year ever. Like
Hey.
I've been there's a few things I've been saying. Like I'm like my humility is now getting in the way of my legacy. And I'm like, I'm sick of playing small. I love being Mr. Front Row, and like that won't change. But there's certain things where I'm like, nah, I need to step up and be a fucking like legend and an icon. And like a couple times, like that Kanye line echoes in my head, and like that one line, "Damn, is these ninjas that much better than me?" I'm like, nah. And like,
Right.
especially in 2025, like rhyme wise, I feel pretty good and confident. If you don't like my raps, whatever, it could be a flavor thing. But like, I feel like I could fuck with a lot of the greats. And that, with that being said, like this Diddy and now Jay-Z situation has got me being like, I have to step up because sexuality is a very important thing in my life, and hip hop definitely needs leadership in that realm more than ever before. Like shit ain't no fucking joke at all. And this is my 10th year in Florence, so hey, it's time to.
Damn, it's been 10 years already.
10 years. 10 years in March.
That's a full decade.
10
Man.
years, yeah. Yeah.
I'm just playing, anybody.
Yeah.
Slang, bro.
Yeah. I gotta.
Well, you know what? I'll say this, man. Like like when it comes to like like sex and hip hop, like you're like the best candidate,
Right?
to speak to the issues, you know what I'm saying? So absolutely, this is definitely your time to shine right now, So that's how we like alchemize the energy, man. Like take like a negative situation, but use it as an opportunity to like restore integrity. You know what I'm saying? So that's
like the possibility has always been there, and I wish some of our heroes and some of our people would step up. But like, it just ties into everything. It ties into politics and freedom and economics and religion and all this stuff. And it's like, it's just about teaching actual love and teaching actual harmony and acceptance. And like, there's like, I bring it back to certain basic things all the time. I'm like, white motherfucker. I'm like, Elton John was out the closet in 1981. Elton John has lived as a superstar. He's gay with children and lived as a world superstar from time. But like, Queen Latifah hasn't officially, like, we know her situation and we love her, but like, hip hop has never officially, and Black people have never officially allowed her freedom to just, you know.
Very taboo.
But here's the question: what is it about? How really linked is sex and hip hop, and like, why does it have to be linked anyway?
Well, sex is linked to everything. Not at all times.
You want it to be or not.
Yeah. And like, that's the thing, either in a healthy form or an unhealthy form. So, and like, nothing is like permanently, perpetually always the issue. But like, sometimes it's sex, sometimes it's money, sometimes it's, fashion, sometimes it's health and whatever. So it's like, when there's time to actually discuss sex in hip hop, we've had so many problems with people just ignoring it and being like, hey, not every, like, that whole gay rapper phenomenon happened, and everyone was like, let's just shut up about it and put it in the closet and never acknowledge it. And Wendy Williams came out and was like, Busta Rhymes is queer, Meth and Red and Puff Daddy and said and Q-Tip and all these, she named a bunch of names. And 20 years later, all of these people pretty much have had same-sex issues, and not issues, but like relations and issues with them being silent about it. Like,
is it really about them being queer, or like, is it just the sex? Because like, I just don't see sex as a topic in other musical genres the way that it is with rap. Why?
I have a feeling that it might have something to do with a little bit with the way in which rap has always led, right? And it's a very bravado, masculine, very kind of genre of music, right? Where you have this depiction of how people are supposed to be and carry themselves, right?
But why do we have that picture? I don't see that in like rock music.
You don't. For some reason.
I don't see it in house music.
Yeah.
Unless it's just me not being a part of that circle. So that's why I don't know. But even if you just look at snapshots of what you would see in the media, rap always has this hypersexualization that's attached to it.
That's the difference. Like, there is romance and there is kissing and there is like sex, drugs, and rock and roll is a thing. Like, there are groupies in rock with rock, but like the hypersexualization for sure. And like, we have a problem with the hypersexualization along with the hyperviolence. Like, I was so offended the days when they're like, "Oh, you can't be a platinum rapper unless you've been shot." I'm like, this is horrific.
So I have a question. So like, is it possible to say that like hip hop has been weaponized? For
absolutely, 100%.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, in all facets of the genre of music, in everything.
Because even when you're saying that, what was it that you just said now about like the types of sex that's like sex, drugs, and rock and roll, like, for example, right? That's like a concept.
It is.
Yeah.
We don't see sex, drugs, and rock and roll in rock media. You know what I mean? We know that it's a concept and that this is the thing that goes with it, right? But we don't see it visualized, and actualized in the same way that we do in our community.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, even though
and maybe that is part of that weaponization.
You're absolutely right, and like,
and the powers that be that are weaponizing it.
Yeah, and capitalizing off it.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, like,
right?
Yeah,
and
like
people that shouldn't be at the table that are at the table, and they're the ones that are weaponizing it.
That's exactly it. And I just wanted to, like, my point about sexuality for me is like, people know me, like they know that I'm in porn or whatever, but like I never introduce sexuality into situations where it's inappropriate or where I'm trying to manipulate or be a controller or be a fucking creep like Puff Daddy or these dudes who like drug drinks and like kidnap girls and like keep people against their will, all this toxic fucked up shit that we're learning that some of our superstar rappers are actually doing. I'm like, yo, there's no legal precedent. I have no reputation of doing this because I'm not that person. I love the music and I love women. And people know me for loving music and people know me for loving women. And like, so that being said, like the point of me saying all this is like, I want to have these conversations. So like 10%, like if 10% of every population is queer, I want to be like the 10% of people in hip hop who are gay and lesbian. I would love them to have the freedom to be out about it, like Elton John is, or like Ellen DeGeneres is, or like Rob Halford, or so many white people who can be gay and rich and famous at the same time. Because with Black people, you can be gay, but you can't be rich and famous. Or you can be gay and rich, but you can't be famous. Or you can be famous and rich, but you have to be silent if you're an Oprah Winfrey.
I feel like that is a concept that was put on us.
It is.
More so than us actually being that way. This is probably going to cause like a lot of taboo or whatever. But I feel like when it comes to Black people, like culturally, even though we know we're not a monolith, right? But just for the sake of this conversation, we don't really care about people being gay. If you're gay and I'm not, don't fuck with me and leave the babies alone. That's pretty much all we care about. You know, other than that, we don't really care what people are doing with their parts when we're not around. You know what I mean? I feel like that's a concept that's more been put on us to have to fit in or out of a box than how we actually live our lives. You know what I mean? I'm sure that there are lots of people who don't like queer people, but I'm sure that those people come in all shapes, colors, and sizes. It's not restricted solely to Black people or specifically Black people who are in hip hop. Like that whole stigma of like, I can't say anything about my sexuality because I'm going to be reprimanded. I don't even think that that's really like a Black people issue. I think that that's an issue that's been put on us, and somewhere along the lines we've felt obligated to like live up to this stereotype.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like historic propaganda that has like, you know, impacted us and whatnot. But yeah, you know what I mean? And I mean the hypersexualization that goes from like long before hip hop, you know what I'm saying? There's like historical connections to that. But like Bender, like something that you're talking about that sounds pretty interesting is basically having like, you know, since we're talking about sexuality, to have this like sexual expression, but like with integrity. So it's not the way that we've been taught through our music, you know what I'm saying? Like listening to, you know, old school, like, you know, Jay-Z lines or whatever, you know what I'm saying? As this is like the approach, you know, when it comes to like, you know, expressing ourselves, you know, like you said that you, like the way in which on how you bring that about is, you know, through like respect with integrity. And I think we almost like need to like, or there needs to be more opportunities to like learn those types of like techniques, you know, so that way people can still be authentic, be who they are, but then also have that like mindfulness of like, you know, like the environments that they're in spaces, you know what I'm saying?
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Maybe those things will actually change as time progresses, because a lot of the reason why we had to live in those boxes just had to do with the era that we came up in. You know what I mean? And it just, for whatever, regardless of if we were Black or white, hip hop or rock, it just wasn't something that was openly discussed or that there was a lot of space for, you know? So maybe all of that conversation isn't going to even last as long as we think it will. You know, maybe we're also just biased in our era, you know, so like we are still having that same conversation, but the generation who's coming after us, I don't know that they're having the same conversation.
So they have a level of freedom that we never had. Like I had this interesting realization where I was like, okay, well, first there's like Frank Ocean winning a Black. Frank Ocean is a wonderful step forward. He's out, queer, famous, and like Little Nas X happened, but I'm like, Little Nas X was such an interesting, weird phenomenon because technically he's like hip hop. Yeah, he's like, he didn't even come up with like in rap magazines and then blow up in the mainstream. He's like, he came straight to the pop arena, but he's like doing black music, like hip hop, like dancey, whatever. It's like essentially black music, and he's obviously queer, but like and he's accepted. And but like I'm like, shit, this Lil Nas X couldn't have happened 20 years ago. And I don't really think in the pop mainstream, and definitely not in hip hop, not at all. So like we have like this generation has done some evolution and stuff, but like one of the big reasons why I'm like sexuality is just needs to be like understood. And I speak of it as a civil rights issues because I'm like I'm in entertainment and whatever, but I'm like I do a lot of studying, and I'm like the army has a crazy fucking like rape and sexual assault subculture that rarely gets talked about. The food industry, there's a lot of chefs. I personally know a chef who used to rap on the In Divine Style open mic. Pretty shitty rapper, and he knows he was a shitty rapper. They didn't do well in hip hop. Moved into the food industry and became a world-class chef. Fucking, like a bit like he's got got books. He's got restaurants. Like he's done way better as a chef. And he is and he's got sexual assault charges and rape. He did, and and he used to rap. And like so there's just this is just like a society thing. Like we have to talk about it in hip hop, but I'm like, no, this is every industry, fashion, fucking food, whatever. Like as long as there's power and humanity and like economics, there's like bodily exploitation that's like sexual and physical and intellectual.
And that's one thing we gotta do. We gotta keep the conversation going, and that goes into some of the latest accusations in the news. With Jigga Man, what I'm saying?
What do y'all
But
think?
again, with all of that, like if we bring it back to like sex and hip hop, though, right? Like we keep saying, like it was the era. Like you're saying, Lil Nas X would not have flown at that time. But is it really because of us as a culture, or is it because of the people who were orchestrating the culture at the time?
Or both?
Or both. Because again, I know it may be a weird thing to say, but I really don't feel like Black people are homophobic as society makes us out to be.
No, you're right. Yeah, you're
about that one.
In certain communities, I would say, I think
it's something that's been set on us because of, and yes, I understand that a lot of that stems from like slavery and things like that. But that's still, religion, but that's still.
What about just being?
But that's still an out. That's colonial. Yeah. That's still an outside.
It's still something that's we're indoctrinated into.
Yes, that's the key thing. It's indoctrinated. It's not a true sense of self.
Right.
It's something that you've been taught.
Right.
Right?
But sadly, some of us perpetuate it.
Right.
It's just like it's like normal. It's just like
normal.
I'm just saying, instead of going for the symptom, go for the cause.
Oh no, for sure.
Right. And I don't think that that we're displaying symptoms, but we're not the true cause.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Especially if you're looking at it from like a music perspective, right? We're talking about like the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Who was in control in those rooms when they're deciding what kind of music is coming out? That's at the peak of like gangster rap time. Absolutely, those execs are not going to let Lil Nas X out. It doesn't fit in with their narrative for the time. You know what I mean? Right. Now we're living in a time where that narrative is what is driving popularity and income and all of that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So is it really about us and hip hop as the culture itself? Or is it about the people who are like directing and orchestrating, and orchestrating being like my chosen word, because directing means that there's some kind of like, we have an involvement in it, whereas orchestrating, like we're just the puppets to a degree.
I feel like if you're directing and orchestrating during that time, you're still part of the culture. So you're still part of the problem, which is the culture.
Right, but at that time, those who are orchestrating, almost none of them are Black.
Yeah, true.
That's the point I'm trying to make. It's not necessarily, I'm not saying it hasn't affected our culture, that we don't still put out these ideologies. You know what I mean? But I don't think that if we're looking at it just like sexuality, queerness, rap, and doing that comparison, the people who are orchestrating that shit, like they're the ones who are really saying what we're going to see and what we're not going to see, right? Because we had a really rich, conceptual, conscious rap movement
you're right.
happening, right? And then all of a sudden,
it just changed.
it shifted, right? And is that because Black people just suddenly got ignorant? Or is it because of who was orchestrating the shit?
These motherfuckers are like, we don't want to make money off this shit anymore. It's way easier to make money off anything that sounds like Snoop
It's like
Dogg.
what I was saying, like a little bit earlier, where like, you know, they get to a point where they decide that they'd rather make money than be racist.
That's such a wonderful statement.
Yeah, that's big. That's it right there.
Big, absolutely.
Yeah.
Such a wonderful statement. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and that's I'm glad y'all talked about, like, you know, hip hop still being here, because I actually remember the moment. I was sitting at my house, it was like grade 9. I'm reading a magazine, and it was like a mainstream magazine, and they were talking about, there was a column where they're talking about hip hop, and this dude is like, yeah, it's literally 1991. And I'm reading it, and somebody was like, yeah, man, this shit won't even be around at the end of the decade, so whatever. And I said,
It's already been what, 15 years?
yeah, for sure. And like in reality, exactly. Like and like it's been through the whole decade. I'm like, this shit started in fucking 74, if you give a fuck. But like, yeah, like rappers to like 77. So I'm like, I'm reading this, and the thought I had in my head, I was like, if it's a room of me and 10 other people, and we're the only ones sitting there listening to this rap shit, I'm gonna be listening to this at 65. And like, I remember when I was 13 years old, being like, you idiot, like this dude being like, oh, this shit ain't gonna last even another 5 more years. Yeah, and I was like, I'm gonna fight these motherfuckers so hard. You're wrong. I wish I could find that article. So
I remember seeing a number of articles,
Yeah, there was lots.
things like that, where they're like, it's just a fad, it's not going to last, it's not a real genre. Look how long it took us to even be recognized like as a genre, right? Because for the longest time, it was just pop, right? For a long time, it was just pop. There was no rap categories. I was telling one of my clients how, do you remember back in the day when we would watch like the Grammys and they'd show like after a commercial that clip where they're like, and these people also won awards, and it was all the Black people? We never even got to do, we never performed. We couldn't even go on the show and accept the award. They just gave us a little footnote in between. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's all by design. That's what I'm saying. Like, you know, like to keep, you know, at a certain space.
That's right.
And then after a while, like, you know,
even us becoming mainstream. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Even us becoming mainstream is a result of like what we're just saying, like it's orchestrated, right? Like who decides whether or not we accept an award live on television or if we get the footnote? It's not us.
Yeah. And then I think like what happens over time is like, you know, you get people who are of the culture in these spaces, and then new opportunities come about. And, you know, that's why like now we're seeing more. I mean, it's kind of, you know, it's better late than never, I guess, you know, but we're seeing like more, you know, options and whatnot. So it's yeah, like it's, you know, the systems that be, man, there are like there is a structure, you know, a framework that we work within, and, you know, we just got to find ways to get out of it. Yeah.
I like how you said that, the systems that be. Okay, so I'm going to ask a question to you two, if y'all don't mind. This is the big one that we were both talking about off camera. Thoughts, feelings, fucking fears, worries, opinions about where we're at with the whole Puff Daddy trial, and now with Jay-Z being added to it just yesterday with accusations of.
I mean, all I'm gonna say is we've been known.
Yeah.
That's all we really can say. We've been knowing. You know what I mean? And again, going back to like, you know, powers that be, so to speak, there's only so much that we can see shit and be like, this is what's going on. But if they're like, yeah, but it's making money though, you know what I mean? You know, like, you know, and then now, well, it doesn't look like it's made. Look at what this guy did. You know, like we already been knowing. You know, we already knew. We're not surprised. We've been saying for what, better part of a year that Jay-Z's next. You know,
yeah, that's facts. Still, actually, yeah, I've been seeing that.
I'll be honest in saying that for me, the Jay-Z piece is a little bit of a surprise.
Really?
Yeah. For me personally.
Okay.
I don't know if I really expected that. I don't know if I really was like taking the grumbles of that seriously. But Puffy, you know, I feel like we've had the inclinations of him since like the 90s. You understand what I'm saying? I always felt like even since the whole Shine thing went down, I mean, before social media, we were in the streets going, "Yo, something not right about this brother." You know,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? We were all talking about that, you know.
Facts.
So for him, I can understand this being like, you know, what it is. But Jay-Z, I'm still kind of like, really, man? No.
I think the only difference between the two of them, honestly, is that Jay-Z was just a little bit more strategic.
Probably.
You know,
was.
he's not as bossy.
Sure.
Yeah.
He doesn't require the limelight in the same way that Puff does, right? Because like Puff, I feel like he requires the limelight to offset, you know, the other things about himself, the truths that he doesn't want to face.
Yeah. So it's a little bit easier for the Jay-Z situation to kind of fly under the radar.
You know,
Yeah.
Jay-Z's kind of like Apple in the sense where like we're gonna see how y'all do this first, and then now I'm gonna put in my improvements and upgrades and things to make sure that I don't, you know, that my system works a little bit better.
That's wild. That's a ill parallel. And you're absolutely right. The thing when you're talking about how it was kind of lingering there, like Jay-Z was doing so like a slower version of the very similar crime, and his version was just acceptable enough, because it's wild to see that some of these people are actually underage, and it's even wilder to see that some of them are boys. It's really heartbreaking and really fucked up. So like that is so fucked up shit. And like I think it's as today it's been like multiple underage boys are, and I'm like, I'm not saying that it has happened or whatever. I am a fucking not hard evidence, but like I want much legal truth and proof as we can to verify or eradicate these accusations. But I'm like studying it and taking it seriously and trying to read as much information as I can, as fucking legally given to the public. That being said, it's like with Jay-Z, I knew he was fucking around with Foxy Brown when Foxy Brown was 15. Back in the day, we were all like, yeah, Foxy Brown's young. And people were like, yo, I think Foxy Brown is 16, 17. But like, no one's like...
I think at that age, because we were so much into hip hop, like, and we were like in the prime of it and the prime of ourselves. We're not and mostly kids, right? Yeah. When we looked at those people, we never really looked at them as like elders. We always saw them as peers.
Right. For sure.
You know what I mean? And I think that when you're looking at people as peers, it's a lot less likely for you to believe any such debauchery. You know, because when you're just like, oh, you were with Foxy Brown, to us, that's no difference than you saying, oh, you were with Eternia. Like, we think it's all the same shit, not realizing that there's this gap.
The truth was, at the time when Ain't No Nigga was made, Jay-Z was 27 and Foxy Brown was 15.
Was she 15? Okay.
She was 15 when that record was made. And it was one of the interviews that they tried to scrub from the internet, but I actually heard it recently, where it was one of the few interviews where Jay-Z and Foxy Brown did the interview together. And she was like, Foxy was like, I was a kid at that time. And she wasn't saying it in a bad way. She was saying, she was like, I was a kid. And she was like, I was a grown ass kid, but she was like, I was 15. And she goes, remember, sometimes y'all would have to come pick me up from school and you're like, whoa. Wow.
I mean,
Jay is like 27 years old.
Did Foxy just debunk all that?
Him and Dame were fighting over Aaliyah.
An interview where she was like crying in the interview just like a couple weeks ago. And she was like, I don't know why people would say these things and like make these accusations. It makes no sense.
She was, I think it's because some people were saying that there was like a unconsensual. Some people were saying that they were implying that Jay was like raping her or molesting her or doing some shit.
Okay.
But it's pretty accepted that they had a sexual relationship.
Really?
But I'm sure, I know that.
But if she's 15, it's automatically rape.
It's automatically rape, but for sure. Back, like I knew it. I didn't know that Foxy was 15 back then, but I have always known that Jay-Z and Foxy had some kind of sexual relationship. I didn't know how old Foxy Brown was at the time until recently.
The labels used to make shit. You know? Even when I was gonna sing, they wanted me to say that I was like 17, even though I was like 23. Because I looked young, right? So like, as far as I knew, when Foxy Brown came out, she was 17. Right?
Exactly.
But that's just what the label's putting out there. It's not like now where you can actually go and fact check it. You know what I mean? Whatever they told us is what we believe.
Well, we had no internet, no information.
So like, they're together. We're like, okay.
Yeah, and also it's like, you're like, well, she's on a fucking major label release.
Yeah.
You're like, these are adults. There's professional money.
That part.
Like how can a 15-year-old be exploited like economically and then sexually? Like so you
Yes.
just don't compete. But like that was the reality of that situation. Like I now know that was the truth. So Foxy Brown was 15. Beyonce was 16 when Jay like was courting her. Yeah. And then like didn't actually make the move until she was 18, 19.
And him and Dave were fighting over
Aaliyah, and Aaliyah was under.
She was young.
Wow.
He'd been through something already with R. Kelly, and then these guys come lurking in. Like, if you already know that this is happening with R. Kelly, you don't think that you guys should be acting as big brothers and being like, "Yo, let me."
Stop.
No, they're going to participate.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So I'm like, we've got 3 women here, like logically that filtering the truth out and more information at this point in time that Jay-Z could have been actually has his eye on underage women. So I'm like, I'm not going to dismiss the possibility that it could be with anybody else, man or woman or whatever. Like I'm a fucking like, this isn't no rumor. This isn't no fucking like making jokes and whatever. I'm like, I give a fuck about justice for humanity.
As you say that, I think like one of the main points too is not so much whether or not it happened, but has to do with making sure that however you're going to deal with it, that it is fair across the board.
Absolutely.
And I think that usually the issue that Black folk have with stuff, and like I always use OJ as an example. There's 2 different issues that were happening when the OJ trial happened, right? On one end, we're really like when people were celebrating, white people need to understand we were not celebrating the man's crime.
Yeah.
Okay. We're celebrating the man beating the system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he absolutely did that.
He absolutely did that. and I can say it now for sure. And I
2 separate issues.
I celebrated in grade 9 for sure. I remember the moment I was celebrating. But for sure, 10, 15 years later in my life, I'm like, I care about human
But
justice.
even then, when
I'm
you were
like,
celebrating, were you really celebrating the act, or were you just celebrating the fact that he didn't go to jail?
Exactly. That's exactly. I was just like, it was just like, yeah, black man got off.
He was right or not. It had to do with him being held to the same standard that his white counterparts are.
Exactly that.
So the same thing happens this around. You know what I mean? If you're gonna let Woody Allen walk around here with his married ass fucking molested daughter,
exactly, and
that he purchased.
For real, and y'all not gonna send
that same energy.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep that same energy.
Exactly, because this was around the time where we all watched all those motherfuckers walk for the Rodney King trial. I was on the same.
It's not even about whether or not it happened or not, but like whatever you decide in court, just make sure that it lines up across the board for everybody.
Yeah.
Whatever you did to R. Kelly, you do to Woody Allen, you do to whoever else is out here touching people they're supposed to. Just make sure everybody's getting the same punishment.
That's it. That's
all we ever asked for, man. Just like that equality, man. Just an equal playing field, man. Nothing, no special treatment, just that, and we still can't get that.
You know, because then people are gonna like favor the celebrity in their defense just because they fall into that category of let's not let them get got. You know?
Yeah, but it's like, God damn it, man. Like, I mean, I'm at the point where it's like these guys flew too close to the sun, too much power, too much influence. Like some of the Puffy cases go back to the 2000s and stuff, which is really fucked up, but like it's not that surprising. But
especially the era too, like the time period, like what was happening culturally around them,
Yeah. But like recent, like with some of the freak offs in the last 5 years or so or whatever, it's like Puffy just had too much money and celebrity. And like I always talked about the bad boy curse because I'm like, oh man, we all know. I'm like, why are all the rappers on your label? It's just obvious. Why are all the rappers on your label either dead or like converting religion or their careers are fucked up or whatever, or at least they fucking don't fuck with you at all and like barely want. Yeah, for real. And like the Locks are like, yo, we're not friends. Yeah, so like. So it's like, what is happening with this person? Like people who work with him. So then, I mean, I'm just saying, like, yeah, I used to always talk about the bad boy curse, and then like when we were talking about what was like how good that Puffy hit it, it's like no, we didn't know what he was hiding until we saw the Cassie video.
Right.
Like we got like I didn't know the levels. I'm like, okay, this dude's a monster, but I'm like, oh,
I really just blew it off the roof, man. Yeah.
I'm just changing the game. Yeah. So, but you say,
I was gonna say, like, what makes him like? Who is he in this realm? Like, I feel like he's the minstrel ringleader of the era. You know what I mean? Because like black entertainment just keeps like it shifts the same way that like slavery and discrimination just shifts forms, you know, so does the minstrel show. And for a good chunk of like the rap era, it was just a minstrel show. And he was Uncle Ruckus. You know what I mean?
What's that guy?
He was freaking what's the guy from Django? He was fucking Samuel L. Jackson.
For real. Yeah, he was Stefan, man.
The fact that he's
Definitely.
even
That's
having
interesting.
over sexualized rap for women and stuff like that, because women's rap never started that way.
No, NCAA,
It was very righteous.
For real.
You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, it's basically like, you know, rhythmic prostitution. You know, it's he was the ringleader of like the minstrel of that era.
Absolutely.
I think. You know, and that's
It's
why
crazy when you
happened.
think about
That's
that,
why
how
the
much,
things
like,
weren't happening.
For sure.
Because you know, he has his hands in
and
the
his
right
hands in a lot of things too.
right pockets.
Yeah, there was no single human being like was allowed to, and it literally like things shifted after he said that bomba clock stupid line. Don't worry if I write rhymes, I write checks. Because everyone was like, that would be a super fucking whack line if you weren't sitting on like millions of dollars.
But he's
So,
super
like,
colonial minded.
Of course, and like
That's a pure
What are you saying,
colonial line,
yo?
100%, 100%.
You know, like that the what's his name? The Kendrick song could apply to him too.
He's
You know, he's not entirely like us. You know, it's he has a different you know, and even if we look at that, right? Like who is actually kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like who is not representing rap the way that it should be the most? Puffy talking about like colonialism, money, materialism, capitalism, or Drake. Are either of them really contributing to what we know like hip hop has been? Like they're kind of on par. Puffy ain't like us because he's in it for the money. Like how we were saying earlier, the reason why you haven't capitalized is because you actually love the culture.
Yeah.
Right? Versus more than you love the money.
Yeah.
You're doing it regardless.
Yeah. This is my life. Yeah,
right? And those two kind of seem to be on par in that respect. It's like, you know.
Yeah, no, there was no single human being in the entire history of hip hop that is like, no, like you watered this shit down.
Absolutely.
You barely have any redeemable moments. It wasn't like you were like sometimes commercial and then would sometimes do like experimental next level things to try to justify it. Nah, bro. Like you fucking like J. Rue was right. You're like, yeah, it was like 96. It was literally Puffy and J. Rue, and we were the culture. We were like, what direction are we gonna go? Because like we can barely like coexist. Where there was a time where we were like everyone was like, I listened to both NWA and Public Enemy of equal measure, and hip hop gave the same energy to the same space,
and it was okay.
And and it was like there was times where you had to like fuck with Chuck D, and then there was times you had to fuck with Ice Cube. And then
it was authentic when you're bringing in like the new music, like the puffs and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't actually authentically representing hip hop, so that's why we had to pick.
And when the sad thing was like,
just to add to this, you know, because I'm thinking about a time when I guess like sales for hip hop, you know, there was like a bigger focus on like the suburbs and whatnot in terms of who's actually buying the materials. Like, do you feel that has an influence in terms of like content and like the type of music that's being produced if the main buying source is outside of the community?
Yes, because that's when they shifted. That's why they chose. That's why there was no question that Puffy was going to win over J. Rue. Even though everybody knows that J. Rue is a better rapper, a better everything than Puffy, except for a fucking better check writer.
I was gonna say, well, that's when they decided. I guess one of the moments they decided to pick money over racism.
And that's exactly
like, well, we could let him, you know, and just, you know, encourage him to put out this kind of stuff instead, you know. And here we are.
And it's just been like a weird downhill, but occasional blips up, but like a culturally and creatively downhill since 97, 96. Like,
is it just me, or am I the only one who feels like the demographic of that switch towards concentrating on the suburbs and like white people having the purchasing power in hip hop? We didn't really have to change the narrative of what we were, of the content that we were creating in order to facilitate that. They would have wanted it anyways.
They would have.
Am I wrong in thinking that?
You're not.
I know you're.
It's about the puppeteer.
I know, but I'm just saying.
You're right, but yeah,
I'm just saying. In hindsight,
in a beautiful world,
hindsight being 2020, I do not think that the content
Picture
differential
this now.
would have had
So
any
picture this.
bearing on white suburban people.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. They
You're-
still
you're
would have
right.
purchased it. However,
Yeah.
they would also be armored with knowledge that
Yeah, for real.
There you go.
Yeah,
That
they
part.
would have
want
knowledge,
them to have.
Knowledge
exactly.
itself element.
They would be
That
selling them
knowledge
the
itself element.
You know,
I think
they'd
it's
be armed with too
completely
much
gone.
information that they imagine if between 2000 and now all those white listeners actually learned Black history because they were listening to content.
And the
True.
real
The
insight.
society
Yes.
would be
That's totally
totally
different.
different.
You're right. You're right.
It would be
You're
totally
right.
different.
Because
They
hip
couldn't
hop
let that
literally was
happen.
that bridge.
Yeah,
It literally was that cultural bridge to eradicate, like,
And to be fair, that still happened. That still happened. You know what I mean?
It did. It
On,
did
on,
to a
on a
degree. You're
certain
right.
level.
Absolutely
But when
right.
you're talking on like a mainstream level, yeah.
Mhm.
Like I really feel that could have been something really special for sure.
you're absolutely right, because there's a few select universal groups that actually were going gold and platinum before the Puffy era and before selling out. And it's people like A Tribe Called Quest, where like a De La
Yeah.
and Wu-Tang, cats like that. They're like, and it's like those, you couldn't sell 500,000. Like Tribe Called Quest sold 500,000 records and stuff. Like that's not to all Black people.
Even Wu-Tang, I don't think that the labels would have allowed them to headline in the way that they did if they didn't not have a gang element, because they were so wrapped up in the imagery of like gang life, it distracted them enough to realize that, from them realizing that we're actually like dropping knowledge. You know what I mean?
And
Because Wu-Tang is smart. Wu-Tang is knowledge of self. It's, you know, it's putting out like positive things, right?
Very,
But
very
because it was
marketable.
wrapped
Like,
up in gang life.
yeah.
You know,
They're
if they
very,
were
very
wrapped up in
marketable.
gang life, they would have been dropped just like fucking the rest of them.
Crazy,
That's a really
crazy
interesting perspective for
observation.
sure. Because on the
That's
surface,
great.
when you think of the music videos, think of like ODBs like Brooklyn Zoo and all these, you know what I'm saying? It's like it's grimy, it's
Yep.
you know what I'm saying? But they're also, like you said, like dropping like you know, like knowledge, from like the nation of gods and you know the 5%
5%
culture,
nation. Yeah.
all of that, man. Yeah. So that's a really interesting perspective. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. It's weird because like you look at those things and you say to yourself, like you were saying, how it was wrapped up in I guess in violence and in gang culture to a certain degree. That was like at the time when there was no internet, like our music was like the audible internet during that time. It took you
100%.
It took you into places that you otherwise would not have access to.
I would not know any Black history if it was not for rap.
It's true. There's a lot of that. Yeah, we learned, you know, because of those audio experiences.
Even if you didn't take it as fact, it gave you the catalyst for you to jump off and like learn more.
And do research and critically think and, you know, just do more.
Homie, man, when I had pictures and visions of streets in my mind because I heard Biggie talking about Flatbush and Biggie talking about Fulton Ave or whatever, and when I finally get there, I'm like, I know this even more than I know this. This isn't my first time here.
Yeah, man.
It's like, yo, Biggie took me here.
Crazy like parallel, because like I was literally just thinking to myself how listening to rap back then like made me feel very empowered without me knowing whether or not the things that they were rapping about were fact or not. Listening to them talk about Kemet, listening to them talk about kings and queens, listening to them talk about Black Panthers, listening to them talk about, like, it was very uplifting. And it just goes to show like that's such a great example of what we've been saying the whole time about how the puppeteers are organizing what you consume, because regardless of whether you and I knew that those things were real or not, we consumed it in the same way. Right? We consumed it as if it was fact. So it is really important, the fact of like whether or not we're controlling the narrative or whether we're being directed, right? Because that takes us right back to the over-sexualization. It takes us back to whether or not we're talking about gang life versus like knowledge of self. It like all of that stuff, you know what I mean? And the fact that you were just like, I didn't even know because I never been there, right? And then now you're matching it up with what you see, right? Versus me like, fuck, I didn't know I was fucking queen. And now me matching it up with what I've seen, right? The delivery is the same in both aspects, right? So they absolutely could not have let conscious rap take over. Because regardless, you know, we're consuming it in the same way, right? And it still has the power to stick.
In my head, one. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it just reminded me of like the waves of consciousness, you know. I think of, you know, when like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, you know, where were assassinated, and then like, you know, the Black Panthers came out of that, and then that was dismantled, and now, you know, the rise of hip hop, and then that was dismantled. Like there's
Mhm,
always like these waves of like uprises, you know. We can even look at
mhm,
like Black Lives Matter, you know, even though there's a lot of politics with that, but nevertheless, the rising of a consciousness and then the dismantling of that, you know, but
Yep.
preventing it from reaching that maximum, like that critical mass place, you know, where it's just like,
mhm,
okay, everybody's on this time now, you know?
mhm.
Yo, remember, I feel like I'm like it's wild that people don't remember the history where Fugees were one of the biggest groups on the planet.
Absolutely.
How did we forget it?
Fugees, I'm like, yo, man, they were actually the Fugees were like one of the
Yeah,
greatest
yeah,
pinnacles of like positive energy music.
Mhm.
They were
yeah,
like, and I was like one of the greatest pinnacles of just like pop music mixed with like pretty conscious
yeah,
lyricism was Lauryn Hill. And it's like
It's never been a question.
and it's like that, and like it kind of peaked there. Because to me, I have personal issues, and I'm like, you know, I love agreeing with people. But I'm like, I love hip hop when people just stand their ground and disagree with each other respectfully and intellectually. And one of my positions is that hip hop has never had a woman role model as bad as Nicki Minaj. The very worst woman to ever, and that's my opinion. I stand on it. I think she's physically beautiful. She knows how to rap. I'm not saying she can't rap.
She does know how to rap.
Morally, as a human being, I think she is one of the very worst women to ever pick up a mic.
Mm.
And I'm like, the moral Lauryn Hill, I have many issues with. But a lot of them actually come like long after 1988 and the version of Lauren that was in 1988 and the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. And even her making that album, I'm aware that she might have robbed some of those. Nobody's perfect, but whatever. Like I'll take 5 more Laurens over 5 more Nicki Minaj's any day.
It's never been a question on whether or not consciousness will sell. That's never
Never.
been the question. It's never been a doubt. It's just whether or not they wanted to sell it.
Yeah, for sure. And they haven't wanted to sell it since I think personally
It's the why part for me.
Since
Yeah.
they
It's
haven't
the
wanted
why
to
part
sell,
for
they
me.
haven't wanted
Yeah.
to sell it since
That's the
they
part for me.
figured out.
I'll never be able to understand the why.
You know why?
I don't want to believe that. Why.
Listen, to be black anywhere
wanna
is to live
believe
a
that
life
why.
of rhetoric.
'Cause that's
Okay,
that's just
we know
evil.
why.
it's one of the most evil things in the world
Evil, bro.
because they're taking away the knowledge of self from everybody.
That's
And
evil.
for them to take away the possibility of like
People collective consciously coming together and being great.
Yeah.
and peace, love, unity, and happiness, gathering people and having them teach each other and uplift each other and
Listen to
heal
all
each
these
other.
things.
Yeah,
Listen to all these
they want to
things
take all that away.
Listen to all
Yeah.
the things you're saying.
Yeah.
Every single one of those things that you said is a weapon.
It's a yeah, for real. Of course.
There we go.
Exactly.
Again,
So why would they?
yeah, they're like, yeah, we're not going to sell you, and we're not going to amplify the tools to
Mhm.
destroy our house.
You're like, what? We were a thinking population?
You don't want that.
Yeah, real hell no.
You don't want that.
You want anthem? Like more fight the power songs? Nah. We'll run that once.
No,
Yeah, no, it's infuriating. You're so your heartbreak and your fire is eternal.
because the consciousness that we rap about isn't always even directly black related. You know, because we discuss
It's
politics,
just human related.
we discuss
Human.
Human
religion.
related.
There's all these
Right,
things.
exactly. It's a human
experience. Yeah.
That's it.
That everybody from all corners of the globe can relate to.
And
And that's why hip hop has so much power.
And maybe something else has to be said about the fact that with all of that knowledge, you know, being there, what other genre of music has consistently attempted to push out consciousness?
Mm-hmm. Reggae music?
Maybe reggae.
Close. That's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know-
which
you know what,
is
just
like
to
hip
add-
hop, mother, father, and cousin. Anyways,
Yeah. One of the most
Yeah.
popular musics in the world, but still at the very bottom of the basement when it comes to earning and commercialization and all the different things. Why? Because they know the power of the power.
for sure. One of the most
You know,
popular music in the
I
world.
was just gonna
One of the
add,
biggest
I
superstars.
was just gonna say like something that's interesting with just speaking on like conscious hip hop is I've noticed that there has been like a rise of like Christian hip hop. You know, like there's been a lot, even artists that have been like converting. So, but it's just interesting to see like people are finding just like different lanes of consciousness, like even just within that, you know, which I find really interesting because it just shows that people are looking for something that's a little bit more refreshing, that's a little bit more,
Absolutely.
you know, authentic and so on and so
Yeah.
forth, right? So,
I feel like especially right now, people are just dying for something that is just, you know, higher vibrational, you know,
Mhm.
Yeah, that's it.
in all
Period.
aspects of life, I think right now, not just music alone, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
you know, there would be no better time than now to be able to implement those types of things. But again, the powers that be
Yeah.
controlling it.
The systems that be, yeah, for
Mhm.
real.
Well,
And yeah, the
basically,
oppressors that be.
yeah, I was gonna say. So basically, the question is, it's
That
like, how do we take charge? Like, how do we take charge of our lives? Like, how do we become like living examples of like this change that we want to see?
I
What
think
does
we're in
that
the
look
middle
like
of
in
it.
real time?
I think we're in the middle of it, you know, because even though, you know, mans like Puffy and Jay-Z are like on the chopping block right now, we're in an age where like we can see that we have the opportunity and power to have those types of roles. You know what I mean? Whereas historically, as far as hip hop goes, we never really had those executive roles for us to be able to direct, right? And then now that we can also see our own villains within our community, that should give us even more what's like, you know, gumption to want to
Yes.
go and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
put ourselves into those
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because
or create the position.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Because it's like, yeah, fucking send R. Kelly to jail, send Harvey Weinstein to jail. But it's like, holy
You know?
fuck, send Puff Daddy to jail. Like, this is happening in hip hop too. All of them. I don't give a fuck. I'm like, I'm on some my Malcolm X forever. I'm for justice, no matter who's against it. I'm against injustice, no matter who's for. Like, I don't give a fuck. I don't care that he's black. I'm like, my dad was deported for being a piece of shit as a man. I'm like, I don't care. It's like I want all men, all of like it can be women too. Anybody who's oppressing or molesting people at concert venues or at when you young kids are trying to do fucking like do open mics and that and they're going to like do auditions. I don't want them to none of them to get molested there. Young
Yeah.
kid, black kid, young white kid. I don't care. That's fucked up. But like, Puffy is like, actually, there's a videotape of Puffy fucking Justin Bieber. We live in that world. That shit is real.
No,
Justin
man.
Bieber was a fucking Justin hasn't even come and talked about it. Joe Budden has actually said on he's like, I've seen that with my own eyes and I shed tears. Joe Budden has said he's seen that on camera. These things are
Yeah, but
real.
all of them include him too, because of all of them.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah.
Yeah, watch.
Yeah.
It's true.
Okay. Whoa.
True.
I was
We're
not
like
aware of
we're,
that.
we're putting ourselves in different like roles or whatever. We have to remember to like it's better for us to be creating our own space to do that, because by us wanting to be like the director, that's still us subconsciously like striving for whiteness and we're trying to operate in a colonial system that was never built for us anyway.
Yeah, you're so right. You're so right. That's the bottom line. Yep.
Man, true indeed, man.
Well,
True
damn, this
indeed.
is longer than 30 minutes.
Yeah, for real. We could stop there. It's just pure
I mean-
gold, gunshots and gold.
No, it's pure gold. But last thing, I just want to add on because we know that there's big talks about Kendrick Lamar's concert in Toronto happening.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. We usually have a couple topics. Yeah.
I'm hearing all kinds of rumors, man, about like like Drake buying like seats in the front row so that there'll be no one in the front row. I don't know if it's true or not, but there's a lot of like interesting energy going on. But I'm curious to know what are some of your thoughts on that day. I think it's
You
like
want to start with me?
June 12th.
I already know how I feel about Drake. Go for it.
Listen, you know something? I'm gonna say this, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but I don't care.
Good.
I really don't care.
Stand on your own.
I feel like if you as a man feel like you need to go to these lengths to, to save face in a situation where you should just bow out as a man, like you're not doing yourself a favor, you're not doing the city a favor.
Yeah.
Like you just look corny, bro.
Yeah, that's real. If he's actually doing that.
Corny.
Yeah.
The lawsuits, the buying tickets, the making sure that certain mans from certain hood are going to be able to see him when he's here for 2 days and all this rate. Like, dude, like get over yourself, bro. Like your time was coming. It was longer. You stayed longer than you're welcome. I'll say that much. You stayed longer than you're welcome, in my opinion. Yeah. So just go along. Yeah. That's what I say.
What I want to put on top, like he's at a run that has done whatever for however and whatever reason. But I think I want to add something, and it doesn't even. I don't give a fuck that I rap. The truth is, in all of hip hop history, Drake is maybe the biggest superstar who has not helped any other rappers from his own. And like, I'm like, yo, like Drake, I like Drake. You know, I like Drake more than I like Kendrick, and like, there's various reasons why I enjoy his stuff. But I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Like, you're not gonna pick up a dude like me, Mindbender. So I'm like, I'm not even saying this because I'm looking out for a fucking pickup. But I'm like, you compare yourself to Jay-Z. Jay-Z put on Rockefeller, Memphis, Rockefeller had like 19 rappers at a certain point, and a bunch of them, sure, they were sitting on their albums, but State Property, fucking all these cats, like, yo, Beanie Siegel, whatever. So I'm like, I love EPMD because EPMD is like, we're fucking good and we're legends, but we love hip hop so much that we hear Redman, come on in, Redman, come on in, Keith Murray, come on in, K Solo, come on, like real hip hop is just like, you get, and like real fucking slavery freedom is like, I get on and then I bring my people up with me. And fucking Snoop went back and put out a new Dog Pound album this year and made sure Lady of Rage was on it. And then Snoop was like, I don't even care if nobody wants to. My homies are the East Siders, and the East Siders are getting a new fucking rap album this year. And I'm bringing fucking Warren G on tour with me and fucking DJ Quick. I'm like, that is family. I don't care. I don't care how much good or bad or how much popular or unpopular it is. That's hip hop, that's culture, and that's what this shit's about. And I'm like, Drake, you've done some wonderful things for Toronto. The truth is, in history, that Toronto has now made the biggest he's made music records that have broken mad American records. That's wonderful for you.
At what cost?
At what cost?
So everything that you just said ties into this theory I have about Drake. So you were talking about how like all of these other rappers like help other people come up, right? That's part of a culture in an era that we experienced where we had to work from the bottom and come up, right? I'm glad you picked Jay-Z because he's my example here, right? So when Jay-Z and Kanye made the Run the Jewels album, a lot of people complained saying that it wasn't they couldn't relate because they were talking about rich shit, right? Maybe not us, right? But there was a bunch of people they were like, what are you talking about?
You're right.
About this and blah 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 blah, right? He's from the bottom and came up, right? Then they made this album explaining that we came all the way up and we still just some niggas in Paris. Like they don't see us the exact same way, right? Now, when you look at someone like Drake, right? And I have mentioned before, even though Kanye did come from like a middle class kind of like environment, he didn't like grow up completely poor, right? Outside of maybe him, right? Drake is like the first person in rap that came up in the middle or higher, right? So there was no standard for him to. He sets the standard of don't do that. You know what I mean? There was no one really before him that he knew like, well, maybe I shouldn't be rapping about this gang shit if I never did no gang shit, right? Maybe I shouldn't be rapping about living on Weston Road when I really grew up in Forest Hill, right? But what is he actually comparing it to, right? So all of that to say that I've come to the conclusion that Drake is Carlton Banks.
Wow.
Okay. And like Jay-Z would be Fresh Prince, right? Came from the bottom, built himself up, and now he's got like his fame, right?
That's a wild.
Drake,
such a great analogy.
When Drake gets on stage, he's C-note. Right? Remember that episode when Carlton went to the hood, right? And became like gang, right? But at the end of it, when Will takes him away, he's still like, he's still fucking Carlton Banks, right? Drake's Carlton Banks. You know what I mean? And like, how do we even like, not that I agree with what he's kind of representing in a way, because he's still like commercial, colonial, not really into like the culture. He wouldn't even have that. He doesn't have that mindset to know to bring people up because he never grew up in that environment.
I think that's a wild thing. The strange thing is he's put on like 4 R&B singers, but no rappers. Like, you know, Majid, and it's like, you know, Party Next Door and stuff. That's cool. But I'm like, why? I'm like, there's a conscious reason why you're not.
Right there.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And like, you know, and I can add this to like some other people too. I'm not like I could expand this theory. I'm like, yo, you like only help out rappers like, you know, a little bit, and you might take them on tour a little bit, but you won't do songs with them, or
I
you
don't
like
think he's
strategically. No,
He's not
like you
helping them,
strategically like use somebody for a moment in the media or whatever, but not really putting a cat on and empowering them to like get anywhere near you, even though it's nobody's gonna come. Nobody, like fucking, you should just be comfortable with your
To bring
spot.
that full circle, we were talking about the people who are directing us.
Mhm.
Most of those people who are directing us are Jewish.
Jewish people. Yeah,
And I'll just leave that there.
yeah.
Okay. So many layers, man, to build through, man. But you know what? We may have to have like a part 2 of this conversation. You know, 'cause
Well,
this-
I'm gonna be,
I'm down.
yeah. I mean, I'm gonna be around because like I got these people going to help me do something with my rap magazines. That's a little
Okay,
thing.
that's what's up. That's what's up, man. Let's get it
I
out.
actually though, on the very last thought, it's very funny because we got in so deep, and it's very nice to have you guests on.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me.
Yes,
Thank you,
yes.
guys.
But like,
This was fun.
Impromptu but fun.
your logic, you asked me, but like, if y'all don't mind, quickly, like, just going around and being like, how are y'all doing? Like, we didn't really check in with y'all, like, personally. How y'all
Indeed.
doing?
Yeah.
How are you doing, Logic?
Oh, me. Oh, I'm doing blessed. You know, what I mean, feeling great. One thing I'll add is I was at the Remix graduation last night. You know, 19.0. So big up to everybody.
That's
You know, the
crazy.
whole
That's a rich
generation.
kid.
10 years.
Yeah, man, crazy. You know what I mean? Just, you know, I've been around the Remix since like its inception. You know what I mean? So seeing development and it's just incredible. The talent is incredible. Just like the, you know, the community that they've created. So it's just great to be in that environment. So, you know, there is some hope, you know, in terms of that knowledge of self element and, you know, real authentic, you know, cultivations of our people, you know, so that there is movements that's happening. So, you know, it keeps me focused and I feel inspired by that. All things being said, you know, so yeah.
Dope. Y'all good? Y'all good? Personal?
Yeah, I mean, I'm good. I got no complaints. I kind of feel the same way as you, Logic. You know what I mean? In a sense that like I've been feeling within like the last 6 months to a year that a little bit of that hope has come back.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm seeing certain things just within the community, a little bit more togetherness, a little bit more less gatekeeping, a little bit more less of a lot of things that I felt were just like sore spots and Achilles heels, you know, within the landscape and the community have been changing a lot. And you know, I'm just happy to kind of be where I am right now in that grand scheme of things. And in the space that I'm in to be able to kind of help kind of move and shape those pieces a little bit right now, you know? So I'm really, really grateful for that.
Exactly.
Good.
Love.
Do it.
Hi.
Yeah.
Life is lifing, but you know, that's life. And what else can I say? I'm grateful for moments like this, actually, because it reminds me that we have, even this whole conversation reminds me that we have a lot more control over the things that, you know, are in front of us than we think that we do sometimes. And when you want to try and do something, you should just do it and just be observant, you know, and let the opportunities fall in your lap. You know, make sure that you're walking with a certain awareness so that when the opportunities present themselves, that you can take advantage of it. And that's essentially what happened today. We bucked up on Addie a couple weeks ago at the fucking Riley's Vibe. And just in his passing, I was just like, hey, I have this idea. And it just led to one thing to another. And, you know, now I had no idea I was going to be on podcast today. Like, you know, so just embracing all of the access to physics. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you're right, man. That's the frequency we're on right there, you know, where things just connect, you know, that flow. So
there's been a lot of that for me lately, and I'm grateful and blessed for that.
That's the power of human contact, though, right?
Yes.
Human connection.
On that note, I gotta go.
All right. Yes.
All right.
y'all.
We're
Thanks
gonna
so much
sign
for
off
having
like
us.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. All right, man. Reminisce Show live, man. We're gonna end like that. Reminisce Show live every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Man, we're gonna sign off like that. Shout out to all the special guests, Mindbender Supreme.